Hello everyone, my name is Amirnet and I'm super excited sharing with you the new slicer we are uploading next week into the Power BI Visual Gallery. And this is the Chiclet Slicer. So before we start, just get familiar with what we're seeing here. You're seeing here a regular report which represents car sales. This is our car sales data set. We have here the table of cars, the tables of sales. We're seeing here the details of the sales, timeline, showing here the over line chart, the sales over time. We're seeing here the sales by customers, and here we're seeing three slicers. These are regular slicers that you know from RBI. We shipped them 3 months ago, and they do what regular slicers do. They allow you to go choose a specific year or maybe a specific model. Very simple. You can see here it's slicing, but we're going to make some changes here. We're going to use the new Chiclet Slicer. And how does it work? Well, let's take the month's name here and we're going to convert it to a Chiclet Slicer. I'm using this icon for the Chiclet Slicer. By the time you use it, there'll be a different one, a professionally designed one, but we're not having it ready yet, so we'll use this one here instead. So I'm going to convert it to Chiclet Slicers, and as you can see, the slicer changed. Instead of having just these kind of checkboxes, each item here, each month is getting its own container, its own tile, its own chiclet. And now we can start using it. It's a bit different. Notice how it works. When I click on a tile, you can see it immediately slices. I click another one, it just changes. Very simple. If I want to have multiple selections, I can use Control and select very easily. And we can do another thing we'll see in a moment. So one of the cool things about the Chiclet Slicers is that you can organize it by columns. In here, for example, what I'd like to do is to set it up so we get it organized by quarters. So what we're going to create here is 3 columns for the Chiclet Slicers. Here we go. So now we have every quarter has its own row. Now I can say, hey, show me quarter 1. I'm going to select January, and I'm going to select Alt, click, and I'm going to get all the way to March. Now we're using here Alt click instead of Shift click, and that's a temporary restriction we have. Probably in a couple of weeks, Shift click will work as well. So I want to take a look, for example, second half of the year, July through December, and it just selects, and I can see the sales in the second half of the year. And I can do the same thing here for the years, so let's convert those also to Chiclet Slicers. But this one here, I want to do a bit differently. What I like to do is, I like to go and organize them horizontally. I'm going to go here to the general format, and I'm going to turn on horizontal slicing. And perhaps the best way here is to go and make it a bit wider. So I'm going to go here to the rows and say that the width of the tiles is going to be 65 pixels. Make it a bit wider, the container. And now you'll see that I can fit it nicely, one on top of the years on top of the months. Kind of fits very nicely. So I can see here the sales of second year of 2015. Now, I perhaps want to also remove them. I want to remove the header, and I want to remove the header here. It's pretty obvious if we're looking here at years and months. Make some space, and here we go. Nicely organized. You can go here and select a specific year or a specific month. Nice. Okay, let's move it aside a little bit, make some room, because we're going to look at the cards. Now, what we can do with the cards is we can do the same thing. Convert them to a Chiclet Slicer. Perhaps move them, become horizontal. Notice what happens when I'm making them horizontal. It's a bit different than what you expect. So let's take a look. Notice that when they become horizontal, just filter out the information. When they become horizontal here, each tile gets its own width, and that's very efficient. So I can fit here quite a lot of information. I see Ford is taking much less space than Mercedes, for example. But we can do something else as well. Let's go and make it a bit wider. We want to go and move it back to vertical. And we're going to change to make it a really big tile. So I'm going to go here and do the rows, and I'm going to make a tile for those that are 100 by 100, and make it into 2 columns. And it doesn't look too bad already. I maybe remove the header, just did it before. Maybe make it a bit smaller. Okay, it doesn't look too bad. Still doesn't make, you would ask, why would you make such a giant header? Well, here's the trick. What we can do here is, instead of just using text, we can also use images. To make use of images, you have to add a measure. Now, we're going to see the role of the measure in a moment. It's actually having multiple roles, but you have to add a measure. So I want to look here at the slicer. I want to add the count of cars as a value, and I'm going to go and add the logo as an image. And immediately you see that now the logos are showing up on my slicer. So that allows me now to go and select forward this way. You can see here the logos are pretty small, the text is near and taking quite a lot of space, so we can also have control over the split between the text and the images. So going here to the image, instead of say 50-50 split, let's make it 80% for the logo. We can also go to the rows and control the size of the fonts for the text, make it smaller. So now you can see the font, the text is much smaller, less in the way. Or we can even go all the way and change it completely to say, hey, the images, I'd like to make them all, take all the space, 100%. So what I get here now is a really nice arrangement of the data. I can go and select my logo, and it's just a beautiful gallery of pictures. And since you can control the size of the tiles, you can actually use these slicers just to show images, pictures in a nicely arranged manner. Now, the other really nice thing about that measure is that now it enables the slicers to accept cross-highlighting operations. So let's take a look here. We're actually going to add here also the count of sales ID. So it's going to be a bit more interesting, and you see what will happen here. So we're going to go in and look at the year 2015. We're going to look at the customer whose code is C4, and I'm going to just also select forward. So we're just looking at 2015 C4, and I'm going to select customer C4. And what you see here is something really interesting. Not only I can see here in the table the sales of this customer C4, but I can see that the sales occurred only in March, June, July, October, November, but not in the other months that have been grayed out. And we sold to customer C4 these types of cars, but not Honda and not Toyota. So it's very, very easy to now get instant insight out of the slicers. We can even decide that we want to make sure that those that we haven't sold during the month are going to show up in the bottom. So I can go in here and change the behavior of the slicer to say, on the general, the showed disabled items, instead of showing them in place, let's show them in the bottom. They show up here at the bottom. I can also say I want, when they don't have any data, I want to hide them, and they just disappeared completely from the system. So, or just keep it in place. That's the default, and then they just show up in place. 3 different options. You can also control other things. For example, you can decide that you would like to control, for example, the color of the selected tiles. Let's go here and we want to change here the colors of the selected tiles. We want to make them into instead of just this light blue, we're going to make it into a little bit of light green, and it looks maybe more consistent with the other colors on the board. We can even control the frame, the chiclets themselves. So let's go into this one here and say, hey, for each row, what I would like to do is not show up any frame at all. So I'm going to go for the frame, none, and now no frames. So I can go here now and select, and you can see here, just pick by the icon directly. No frame is required. Very, very easy. It's a beautiful way to organize, create slicers. Even can create things that looks like the old Power View tiles. Look at this. I'm going to take my images here. I'm going to make them horizontal and move them here up to the top. Organize them. And now I can have, maybe I can even make the size of the tiles even larger. So I'm going to go to the rows here, say, hey, make it maybe 150, and I can go make it larger here. And now what I can do is I can just very easily go and control. Look at the Ferrari sales, look at the Ford sales, look at the Honda sales. Very, very nice. These are the Chiclet Slicers, an incredibly powerful addition to Power BI. Find it in the visual gallery next to you. Thank you.